By 9 o'clock, the ballroom of Ashcombe House glittered like a jewel box, yet Eleanor Ashcombe had already learned that beauty could be cruel. Candles trembled in crystal chandeliers, mirrors multiplied the dancers, and music floated beneath a painted ceiling filled with judgment. Eleanor stood near a marble pillar in an ivory gown, her hands folded quietly before her, watching other young women receive invitations to dance. Her gown had belonged to her mother, whose portrait hung in the upstairs gallery, forever young beneath a frame of dark walnut. Its silk was carefully restored, but its sleeves were modest and its silhouette belonged to another fashion. Eleanor knew this, and so did Lady Beatrice. "Do try to look less solemn, Eleanor," Lady Beatrice murmured as she passed. "People may imagine you have something to be unhappy about." Eleanor lowered her eyes. "I shall endeavor to appear cheerful, Mamma." She knew the rules. A woman could be poor and admired if beautiful. She could be awkward and forgiven if wealthy. Lady Beatrice touched Clara's shoulder possessively. "There, you see? Even the Duke has not asked Eleanor to dance." Eleanor noticed Clara watching her, and for one moment, jealousy replaced pity in her sister's expression before Clara looked away. Perhaps that was why his attention unsettled her. When he gave her the rose, she noticed a tiny imperfection in its silver petals, a delicate crease that made it look handmade rather than purchased. It seemed personal. She closed her fingers around it. For the first time that evening, she felt not chosen, but seen. Lady Beatrice smiled, then turned toward Clara, Eleanor's younger stepsister, whose pale blue satin gown caught the candlelight with every movement. Clara possessed the sort of beauty that made conversations pause. Men noticed her. Mothers noticed her. Lady Beatrice had spent years teaching her how to be noticed properly. "Come, darling," she said. "Lord Edmund Vale wishes to speak with you." Clara glanced at Eleanor before leaving, and that glance contained something almost worse than cruelty, pity. Eleanor remained beside the pillar. A footman approached with champagne, but she declined it. She had no wish for borrowed courage. She had survived 24 years by keeping her dignity intact. Across the ballroom, whispers began. "Is that Miss Ashcombe?" "Yes." "Still unmarried. How unfortunate. She is pleasant enough, I suppose." "Pleasant does not secure a husband." Eleanor heard them without turning. She had become skilled at pretending not to hear things that wounded her. Then Lady Beatrice returned. Her expression was bright, almost amused. "Eleanor, you are attracting attention. I had not realized. That is precisely your difficulty." Lady Beatrice looked Eleanor over with the cool assessment of a merchant inspecting damaged merchandise. "Your father cannot continue presenting you indefinitely," she said. "A young woman must understand when the world has made its judgment." Eleanor's fingers tightened around one another. "I have never asked father to present me." "No, dear. That is another problem. You behave as though marriage were beneath you." "I have never said that." "You need not say it. You merely stand there looking as though you expect someone to value you for your character." A nervous laugh escaped one of the ladies nearby. Eleanor felt heat rise beneath her collar. Lady Beatrice leaned closer. "No man will ever choose her," she said, loud enough for the nearest circle to hear. "A sensible gentleman knows when a woman has nothing to offer him." The words struck deeply because Eleanor had spent years fearing they might be true. For one terrible moment, the ballroom seemed to contract around her. The music continued, yet Eleanor heard only the echo of that sentence. "No man will ever choose her." She lifted her chin. "Then I shall endeavor to survive the disappointment." Lady Beatrice's smile faltered. Eleanor walked away before her courage failed. She passed through the French doors into the conservatory, where the warmth of the ballroom gave way to cool glass and the scent of winter roses. Rain tapped against the roof in delicate, relentless fingers. Beyond the panes, London was blurred into darkness. Eleanor pressed one hand against the cold glass. She would not cry for Lady Beatrice or for people who measured women by the number of men who wished to possess them. Yet her breath trembled. "You are remarkably composed for someone who has just been wounded." Eleanor turned sharply. A gentleman stood behind her. He wore black evening clothes without unnecessary ornament, his posture perfectly controlled. His dark hair was brushed neatly back, his expression calm and severe. Eleanor recognized him. Duke Sebastian Ravenshire. England's most powerful duke. She curtsied. "Your Grace." He inclined his head. "I heard what was said." Embarrassment flooded her. "Then you have my condolences." His mouth almost curved. "Why are you not crying?" Eleanor looked toward the rain. "Because tears would suggest that I believed her." Something changed in his face. "You believe she was wrong?" "I believe," Eleanor replied carefully, That she was cruel. Whether she was wrong is something I have not yet decided. The answer caught him off guard. Then do not allow her to decide it for you. Eleanor looked at him fully. There was no pity in his eyes. That mattered more than kindness. Sebastian reached inside his coat and removed a small silver rose brooch. He placed it upon the marble table beside her. Keep it. I cannot accept such a thing. It is not payment for your suffering. Then why give it to me? His gaze rested upon her, steady and strangely warm, as a reminder that another person's opinion is not a verdict upon your worth. Eleanor touched the silver rose. Thank you, Your Grace. He turned toward the ballroom, then paused. Miss Ashcombe. Yes. When you return to that room, do not lower your head. She almost smiled. I shall try. No, he said quietly. Do not try. Stand. Eleanor returned to the ballroom with the silver rose hidden safely in her palm. Conversations faltered as Sebastian followed, and Lady Beatrice's face lost its serenity. But before Eleanor could understand why the Duke had defended her, a new whisper traveled through the room. The Duke of Ravenshire had been alone with Eleanor. By midnight, London would know. 3 weeks after the winter ball, the rumor had grown larger than the truth. In London drawing rooms, Eleanor Ashcombe was no longer merely the quiet stepdaughter of Lady Beatrice. She had become the girl who had supposedly ensnared the Duke of Ravenshire. Every retelling added another invented detail: a secret meeting, a stolen kiss, a promise whispered beneath moonlight. Eleanor heard none of it directly. Lady Beatrice made certain she did. You have become remarkably interesting, her stepmother remarked one gray morning, folding a newspaper with deliberate care. Unfortunately, interest is not the same as respect. Eleanor stood beside the breakfast table, wearing a simple lavender morning dress. I did nothing. That has never stopped society from deciding otherwise. Lady Beatrice slid the newspaper across the table. A small paragraph described the Duke's supposed fascination with Miss Ashcombe. Eleanor read it once and looked away. I shall not answer gossip. Of course not, Lady Beatrice replied. You will simply allow it to destroy Clara's prospects. At the mention of Clara, Eleanor felt the familiar guilt that Lady Beatrice used like a blade. I would never harm my sister. Intentions are irrelevant when reputations are involved. Before Eleanor could reply, wheels sounded upon the gravel outside. A black carriage stopped before the house. The Ashcombe servants hurried toward the entrance. Lady Beatrice rose. Then she saw the crest upon the carriage door. Her face changed. The Duke of Ravenshire had come. Sebastian entered without theatrical announcement, dressed in a dark frock coat, his expression composed enough to make the room feel smaller. He bowed. Lady Beatrice. Your Grace. His eyes moved toward Eleanor. Miss Ashcombe. She curtsied. I hope I have not intruded, he said. Lady Beatrice smiled too quickly. You could never intrude. I have come to deliver an invitation. He produced a cream-colored envelope sealed with dark red wax. Eleanor stared at it. For me? For you. Lady Beatrice's fingers tightened around the back of her chair. Sebastian explained that he was hosting a private charitable gathering at Ravenshire Manor, where trustees would discuss assistance for widows and orphan children. I require someone who understands dignity without mistaking it for pride, he said. I believe Miss Ashcombe possesses that understanding. Eleanor was speechless. Lady Beatrice recovered first. Eleanor would be honored. Sebastian looked directly at Eleanor. I was asking Miss Ashcombe. The correction was gentle but unmistakable. Eleanor accepted the invitation. That evening, Lady Beatrice warned her that a duke did not invite an unmarried woman to his home without purpose. Then perhaps, Eleanor said quietly, I should discover his purpose before you decide it for me. Lady Beatrice's eyes hardened. You are becoming bold. No, Mama. I am becoming tired. The word surprised them both. At Ravenshire Manor, Eleanor discovered a world unlike the glittering cruelty of London balls. The library smelled of leather, cedar, and dying firewood. Documents covered a long mahogany table. Sebastian had invited several respectable families, clergymen, physicians, and trustees. There was no flirtation. There was work. Eleanor listened, asked thoughtful questions, and suggested that assistance should reach widows before their debts forced them into workhouses. Sebastian watched her carefully. You have considered this before, he observed. My father's tenants have suffered. And you noticed. I notice what people prefer to overlook. Something softened in his expression. By dinner, Eleanor had forgotten to be nervous. Then Lord Edmund Vale ruined the peace. He raised his glass and remarked that charitable ladies sometimes enjoyed displaying compassion because it made them appear virtuous. Eleanor stiffened. Sebastian placed his glass down. A woman's character is not elevated by the man who notices it, Lord Vale. The room fell silent. Nor diminished by the men who failed to. Eleanor looked at him. No one had ever defended her so openly. Later, Sebastian found her alone in the library. "You should not have spoken for me," she said. "Why?" "Because every word you say becomes a weapon in someone else's hands." He stepped closer, though he kept the proper distance. "Then let them learn that I am not afraid of weapons." Her heart betrayed her with one sudden, painful beat. Before she could answer, he noticed the silver rose brooch fastened at her collar. "You kept it?" "I said I would." "I am glad." His voice was quieter than before. The following morning, however, the warmth of Ravenshire vanished beneath a new storm. A compromising letter was discovered in Eleanor's chamber. It appeared to contain secret declarations between her and Sebastian. Lady Beatrice held the paper before a gathering of witnesses, her expression sorrowful enough to appear innocent. "How could you bring such disgrace upon this family?" Eleanor stared at the handwriting. It looked like hers. The room began to spin. "I did not write this." Sebastian entered before anyone could answer. He took the letter from Lady Beatrice and read it. His face became unreadable. "Where was this found?" "In Miss Ashcombe's room," Lady Beatrice replied. Sebastian looked at Eleanor. "I believe you." Her eyes filled despite herself. "But believing you," he continued, "will not be enough." That evening another blow arrived. The silver rose brooch Sebastian had given Eleanor was discovered among Clara's possessions. Clara claimed Eleanor had given it to her. Eleanor knew she had not. Sebastian knew it too. Yet someone had deliberately placed the brooch there. As the household descended into suspicion, Eleanor realized the scandal was no longer simple gossip. Someone wanted her disgraced. And whoever had forged the letter knew exactly how to make the lie look like truth. Near midnight, Eleanor returned to her room and found one final message waiting beneath her pillow. There were only 7 words. "You should ask your stepmother about your mother." Eleanor's blood ran cold. For the first time, she wondered whether the woman who had spent years telling her that no man would ever choose her had been protecting a secret far more dangerous than jealousy. Her mother's death now seemed strangely mysterious. The message beneath Eleanor's pillow remained open on her desk long after midnight. Rain whispered against the windows of Ravenshire Manor. She read the 7 words again. "You should ask your stepmother about your mother." For years, Eleanor had accepted her mother's death as the sorrowful beginning of everything that followed. But now every memory seemed altered. Most of all, she remembered her mother saying shortly before her death, "Never let anyone convince you that kindness is weakness." Eleanor had thought those words were a farewell. Now they sounded like a warning. At dawn she returned to Ashcombe House. Lady Beatrice received her in the blue drawing room, where winter sunlight fell across polished furniture. "You have returned unexpectedly," Beatrice said. "I have questions." Her stepmother smiled faintly. "How dramatic. What happened to my mother's papers?" Silence. Then Beatrice placed her teacup upon its saucer. "Your mother was ill. Her affairs were confused." "That is not an answer." "It is the only answer you require." "Who forged the letter?" Beatrice's expression changed. Only slightly. But Eleanor saw it. "You have become suspicious," Beatrice murmured. "I have become observant." Then she laughed. "Do you truly imagine the Duke will marry you because he feels sorry for you?" Eleanor's heart tightened. "I did not ask him to marry me." "No. You merely let him pity you." "I do not believe he pities me." "You believe a great many foolish things." Beatrice stood and approached the fireplace. "Your mother believed them too." Eleanor froze. "What does that mean?" Her stepmother stared into the flames. "Your mother was given every opportunity to secure her future. Instead, she trusted people who did not deserve her trust." "Who?" Beatrice turned. "Your father." "What did father do?" "Nothing." "That cannot be true." "It is precisely because he did nothing that everything happened." Before Eleanor could press her, Beatrice walked to a locked cabinet. She removed a small brass key from a chain around her neck. Eleanor stared. "That belonged to my mother." "Yes." "Why do you have it?" "Because she gave it to me." "Why?" Beatrice unlocked the cabinet and withdrew a bundle of letters tied with faded blue ribbon. "She wanted me to destroy these." Eleanor's breath caught. "Did you?" "No." Beatrice placed the letters on the table. "I kept them." "Why?" Because one day you might need to understand what your mother sacrificed. Eleanor untied the ribbon. The first letter bore the seal of Ravenshire, Sebastian's family. She read the opening lines and felt the room tilt beneath her. Years earlier, her mother had secretly helped Sebastian's younger sister escape a scandal that could have destroyed the Ravenshire name. She had done so without asking for money or recognition. Then came another letter. This one revealed that Eleanor's mother had discovered financial misconduct involving a member of the Ashcombe household. She had intended to expose it. She had never lived long enough to do so. Eleanor looked up. Who was responsible? Beatrice said nothing. You knew. Yes. And you allowed everyone to believe my mother simply died. She was already dying. That does not make your silence innocent. Beatrice's composure cracked. I was afraid. Of whom? Of losing everything. Eleanor suddenly understood. Her stepmother had not merely despised her. She had feared her. Because Eleanor was the living heir to a truth buried with her mother. What does this have to do with the forged letter? Beatrice looked toward the door. I did not forge it. Then who did? Before she could answer, footsteps sounded outside. Beatrice seized Eleanor's wrist. Listen to me. If you continue with the Duke, you will uncover things powerful people have spent years hiding. Eleanor pulled free. I have already uncovered enough to know that silence protects the guilty. She left before Beatrice could stop her. That evening, Sebastian found Eleanor in the library at Ravenshire. He saw the letters in her hands and immediately understood that something had changed. Who gave you those? My stepmother. His expression darkened. Then she has finally become frightened. Eleanor looked at him. Were you aware that my mother saved your sister? Yes. Why did you never tell me? Because I did not know whether you wanted the past reopened. My entire life has been shaped by a past I was never allowed to understand. Sebastian crossed the room. I am sorry. She looked down. I have spent years believing that I was difficult to love. His face tightened. Who taught you that? Everyone who watched me be overlooked. He reached for her hand, stopping before touching it. Then allow me to tell you what I see. Eleanor lifted her eyes. I see a woman who notices suffering before comfort, who refuses to trade dignity for approval, and who has more courage than she knows. Her composure broke. A tear slipped down her cheek. Sebastian gently brushed it away. I do not wish to rescue you, Eleanor. I wish to stand beside you while you discover that you never needed rescuing. For the first time, Eleanor allowed herself to believe that his affection might be real. Then Sebastian's gaze fell upon the final letter. His expression changed. Where did you find this? In the bundle. He read the signature. His face went pale. Eleanor watched him. What is it? Sebastian folded the letter slowly. This name, he whispered, belongs to the man who has been financing the campaign against you. A knock sounded. Before either could move, a servant entered carrying a telegram. Sebastian broke the seal. His eyes hardened. Eleanor knew before he spoke that their enemies had moved again. Your stepmother has left London, he said. Where has she gone? Sebastian looked at her with grim certainty. To the man who wants you ruined. Outside, rain gathered against the darkening windows again. By sunrise, Ravenshire Manor was already awake. The telegram lay upon Sebastian's desk, its paper creased beneath his hand. Eleanor stood opposite him, pale but composed, while the first light of morning entered through the tall windows and turned the storm clouds silver. Where is my stepmother? Eleanor asked. Sebastian looked toward the dark grounds. She has gone to London. To meet the man behind this? Yes. Then we must follow her. Sebastian shook his head. No. Eleanor stared at him. No. You will remain here. I will not. His expression softened, but his voice remained firm. Eleanor, the man we are dealing with has spent years manipulating people who trusted him. I will not place you in his path. You cannot protect me by keeping me ignorant. I know. Then let me stand beside you. For several seconds neither spoke. Sebastian crossed the room and placed the letters upon the desk. I have spent most of my life believing power meant controlling every outcome, he said. I was wrong. Eleanor watched him carefully. What changed your mind? You. The simplicity of the answer wounded her more deeply than any elaborate declaration could have done. Before she could respond, the doors opened. A messenger entered carrying a sealed packet. Your Grace, these were delivered from London. Sebastian broke the seal. Inside were bank records, correspondence, and a statement signed by Lord Edmund Vale. Eleanor read the documents over his shoulder. The truth emerged with devastating clarity. Lord Vale had been working with a solicitor connected to Lady Beatrice. They had forged the letter, planted the brooch among Clara's possessions, and spread rumors about Eleanor because they feared the inheritance left to her by her mother. The inheritance was substantial. More importantly, Eleanor's mother had attached one condition. The fortune could not be controlled by any husband, guardian, or relative. It belonged entirely to Eleanor. Lady Beatrice had spent years trying to prevent Eleanor from claiming it. Eleanor closed her eyes. So that was it. Sebastian looked at her. It was never because you were unworthy. No. He stepped closer. They needed you to believe you were. That realization broke something inside her. All those years of humiliation had been carefully cultivated. Every insult had served a purpose. Every reminder that no man would choose her had been another chain around her confidence. Eleanor wiped away a tear. I nearly believed them. Sebastian answered quietly. I know. And if you had not come that night, I would still have come. She looked at him. Why? His composure finally fractured. Because from the moment I heard you refuse to cry for their approval, I knew I had never met a woman like you. The words remained between them. Then Eleanor whispered, You should not say such things unless you mean them. Sebastian took her hand. I have never meant anything more. 2 days later, London gathered beneath a sky the color of iron. The ballroom of Ashcombe House was crowded with aristocrats who had come expecting scandal. Instead they witnessed judgment. Sebastian entered with Eleanor beside him. Conversation stopped. Lady Beatrice stood near the fireplace. Lord Edmund Vale was beside her. Neither looked prepared for what followed. Sebastian walked to the center of the room. I have asked you all to gather because Miss Ashcombe has been accused of conduct that dishonors her family. Eleanor's heart pounded. Sebastian continued. The accusation is false. A murmur passed through the crowd. Lord Vale stepped forward. Your Grace, surely you do not intend to make a spectacle of this. I intend to make the truth impossible to conceal. He lifted the forged letter. This document was manufactured. Then he presented the financial records. This brooch was planted. He placed the silver rose upon the table. And these payments prove who arranged the deception. Lord Vale's face drained of color. Lady Beatrice remained motionless. Sebastian turned toward her. You told society that Eleanor had nothing to offer a gentleman. Lady Beatrice's lips parted. You made her believe that she was destined to remain unwanted. Eleanor looked at her stepmother. For the first time she saw no terrifying authority in that face. Only fear. Sebastian's voice hardened. You were wrong. Silence filled the ballroom. He turned toward Eleanor. I will not marry Miss Ashcombe because society has finally decided she is worthy. Every eye moved toward her. I shall marry her because I decided long before society possessed the courage to see what I saw. A collective breath seemed to pass through the room. Eleanor could barely breathe. Sebastian walked toward her. I love you. The words were simple. They carried more weight than every title, fortune, and whispered rumor in the room. Eleanor looked at the man who had first found her crying beneath the conservatory glass and had never once treated her as fragile. You understand what they will say? She whispered. I have spent my entire life listening to what people say. And you are not afraid? No. Why? His fingers closed gently around hers. Because for once I have something worth being judged for. Tears filled her eyes. But before Eleanor could answer, Sebastian lowered his voice so only she could hear. If you do not love me, I will never force you to become my wife. Her heart broke open at the freedom within the offer. I do love you, she whispered. Sebastian closed his eyes for one brief moment, as though the confession had reached somewhere no triumph ever could. Then Eleanor turned toward the room. She looked at Lady Beatrice. I once believed your words because you repeated them until they sounded like truth. Her voice remained steady. But I know better now. Lady Beatrice looked away. Eleanor did not pursue her. She had no desire to become cruel merely because cruelty had once been shown to her. Outside, church bells began ringing across London. The scandal that had been intended to destroy Eleanor had instead stripped away every lie surrounding her. Yet Sebastian knew the story was not finished. That evening, Eleanor returned alone to the conservatory where they had first met. The silver rose rested against her heart. Sebastian entered quietly. You are thinking too much, he said. She smiled. I am wondering whether happiness can truly survive after so much unhappiness. He stood beside her. It can. How do you know? Because I have chosen it. Eleanor looked toward the rain-darkened glass. For years she had believed her future would be decided by whether someone wanted her. Now she understood something greater. She had never needed to be chosen to become worthy. But she had been given the rarest gift of all, a man who saw her worth before the world did. Sebastian reached for her hand. "Come home with me." Eleanor smiled through her tears. "For how long?" His gaze held hers. "For the rest of our lives, if you will have me." She answered without hesitation. "Yes." Yet as the bells faded into the night, neither of them noticed the unopened letter lying upon the conservatory table. It bore the seal of Eleanor's late mother. And beneath the faded wax was one final secret that could change everything. The letter remained upon the conservatory table until morning. Neither Eleanor nor Sebastian had noticed it beneath the dying candlelight, but when dawn entered through the glass roof, Eleanor saw the faded seal and recognized the handwriting immediately. Her mother. For several moments she could not touch it. Sebastian stood beside her, silent. "Open it," he said gently. Eleanor broke the seal. The paper trembled in her hands. "My dearest Eleanor," she read, "if you are reading this, then the truth has finally found you." Her breath caught. The letter explained what her mother had never been able to tell her. Eleanor's inheritance had not merely been money. Her mother had deliberately protected it because she knew Eleanor would one day be surrounded by people who valued her fortune more than her heart. Then came the words that changed everything. "I feared you would grow believing that beauty was the price of being loved. Do not make that mistake. A woman is not made precious by the man who chooses her. She is precious before anyone sees her." Tears blurred Eleanor's vision. Sebastian read the final lines over her shoulder. "If there is ever a man who sees your quiet strength, who respects your mind, and who does not ask you to become smaller so that he may feel greater, then trust him." Eleanor lowered the letter. "He described you." Sebastian smiled faintly. "No. Your mother described the man you deserved." Eleanor looked at him, and for the first time she understood that her mother had somehow protected her from beyond the grave. The months that followed transformed Eleanor's life. The scandal disappeared slowly, as scandals always did when replaced by something more interesting, but the truth remained. Lord Edmund Vale was forced to leave London after his involvement became public. Lady Beatrice lost the influence she had guarded so fiercely, and Clara, ashamed of her silence, finally confessed that she had known her mother was trying to keep Eleanor unmarried. Eleanor forgave her. Not because the betrayal was small, but because Eleanor no longer wished to carry bitterness as proof of what she had survived. Then spring arrived at Ravenshire. The gardens awakened beneath pale sunlight. Roses climbed the stone walls, fountains glittered beneath the afternoon sky, and carriages began arriving for the wedding of the Duke of Ravenshire. England had expected a spectacle. What it witnessed was something quieter. Eleanor entered the chapel wearing an ivory gown inspired by the dress she had worn on the night of her humiliation. But this gown was different. Its silk was luminous, its sleeves delicately embroidered with silver roses, and a small silver brooch rested above her heart. The same brooch Sebastian had given her when she believed herself invisible. Sebastian waited at the altar. For once, the powerful Duke looked nervous. When Eleanor reached him, he whispered, "You are late." She smiled. "I wish to give you time to reconsider." His eyes softened. "Too late." The ceremony proceeded beneath the solemn music of the organ. When Eleanor spoke her vows, her voice did not tremble. She was no longer the girl who wondered whether anyone would choose her. She was a woman choosing for herself. After the ceremony, the guests gathered beneath the flowering trees. Sebastian led Eleanor away from the crowd and toward a secluded garden. "I have something to show you." He opened an iron gate. Beyond it stood a newly restored cottage surrounded by roses. Eleanor stared. "What is this?" "Your mother's name will be placed above the door." She turned toward him. "I do not understand." "I have established a foundation in her name." He explained that the estate would provide shelter, education, and financial assistance to widows and abandoned children. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. "You remembered." "I remember everything that matters to you." She touched his sleeve. "You do not have to give me a kingdom." "I know." "Then why?" "Because you once told me that you notice what others overlook." He smiled. "I thought England could use someone like you." Eleanor laughed softly through her tears. For years, society had told her that her greatest achievement would be securing a husband. Now she possessed something greater. A purpose. That evening, the wedding guests gathered beneath chandeliers glowing like captured stars. Music filled the ballroom. Eleanor stood beside Sebastian as couples moved across the polished floor. A lady approached and curtsied. Your Grace, you look magnificent. Eleanor smiled politely. Thank you. After the woman left, Sebastian leaned toward her. You realize she was complimenting your gown. I know. She should have complimented your courage. Eleanor looked at him. Must you always say things that make me emotional? No. He paused. I could say something less sincere. She laughed. Across the room stood Lady Beatrice. For the first time she approached Eleanor without arrogance. I was wrong, she said. Eleanor remained silent. Lady Beatrice swallowed. I thought beauty was power because it was the only power I understood. Her eyes lowered. I was cruel because I feared being forgotten. Eleanor studied her. You taught me to fear being forgotten too. I know. A long silence followed. I cannot undo what I did. No, Eleanor said softly. But you can stop doing it. Lady Beatrice nodded. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. But it was an ending to the war. Later, Eleanor slipped away to the conservatory. Rain had begun falling again. She stood beneath the glass roof, remembering the girl who had once hidden there, ashamed because a woman had declared that no man would ever choose her. The door opened behind her. Sebastian entered. You disappeared. I was remembering. Is it painful? A little. He came to stand beside her. What do you remember most? She looked at the silver rose upon her dress. The night you found me. You were angry. I was humiliated. You were magnificent. I was miserable. You were both. She smiled. Do you know what I thought when you gave me this? What? That you were being kind because you pitied me. And now? She looked into his eyes. Now I think you were the first person who saw me clearly. Sebastian reached for her hand. You were always clear to me. Eleanor rested her head against his shoulder. Outside the rain softened. The same rain that had once witnessed her shame now witnessed her peace. Sebastian kissed her forehead. I loved you before I knew what to call it. She smiled. And I loved you before I dared admit it. He looked toward the gardens. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I had not entered that conservatory? Yes. And? I think I would have survived. Sebastian's expression became tender. But I would never have known what it felt like to be chosen freely. He lifted her hand and kissed it. You were never chosen because you were finally worthy. Eleanor looked at him. You were chosen because you were already worthy. The words settled between them like a blessing. Outside, dawn-colored light began to break through the clouds. The woman whom society had once dismissed as unwanted now stood beside England's most powerful duke, not as his ornament, not as his rescued possession, but as his equal in every way that mattered. And somewhere in London, people still remembered the cruel words spoken on that winter night. No man will ever choose her. But history had answered those words more beautifully than Eleanor ever could. The Duke had chosen her. Yet that was not Eleanor's greatest victory. Her greatest victory was that she no longer needed to be chosen. She had finally chosen herself. And when Sebastian took her hand and led her into the golden morning, Eleanor carried her mother's letter against her heart, the silver rose at her collar, and the quiet certainty that love had not saved her from becoming herself. Love had simply found her after she had already learned how to stand alone. The bells of Ravenshire began to ring across the spring countryside. This time Eleanor did not listen for whispers. She listened for joy.